This is a shir on Likutei Sichos, 20th volume, 20th book of Likutei Sichos, the Sicha of Parshas Lech Lecha, which is also Zayin Cheshvan, the 7th of Cheshvan. Tonight is the Zayin Cheshvan here in Bangkok. We're learning the Sicha. Okay. Says the Rebbe, paragraph 1. The 7th of Cheshvan always comes out in the week of the portion of Lech Lecha. Now, the fact that we know that all of the occasions of the year, the festivals of the year, the word mo'ed, is because it's miyuad, it's an appropriate, it's an opportune time, it's a special festival, means a special time. So all of these special times in the Jewish calendar always have a connection with the Torah portion of the week in which they fall. So we understand that the 7th of Cheshvan must also have a correlation with the portion that's being read always on the 7th of Cheshvan, which is the portion of Lech Lecha. So it's not like there's any other week it can fall out. Always the 7th of Cheshvan coincides with the portion of Lech Lecha. So first of all, what is the 7th of Cheshvan? So we know that the 7th of Cheshvan, the Mishnah says that that's the day when we begin to ask for rain in the Holy Land of Israel. It's 15 days after the holiday of Sukkot. Really, the Gemara tells us, the Mishnah tells us, the time of rain is from the beginning of the holiday of Sukkot. However, when you're sitting in the Sukkah and it rains, that's definitely not a time that you want to be asking for rain. So technically, the day after Sukkot, we should be asking for rain. That's when we need the rain. But, says the Mishnah, we wait 15 days so the last Jew can get home to the Euphrates River. The Rabbi brings in footnotes. Was it so the last Jew could cross the river to beyond the river? Or was it talking about the last Jew that lived in proximity to Israel at the river? Because possibly if somebody lived over the Euphrates River, he didn't even have an obligation to come to the Beis Hamikdash. Whatever the case is, you're talking about the Jews that lived in the most distant, remote areas, furthest from the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim. We allocated 15 days after Sukkot. Sukkot is a time when everybody comes up to the Beis Hamikdash, the time for Aliyah LaRegel, where people come up to the Beis Hamikdash. We give 15 days for every last guy to get home. And indeed, that's the law, the way that Rambam says it. The Gemara says it, the Rambam says it, that in Eretz Yisrael, the Holy Land of Israel, and that's the way we do it now. Tonight in Israel, they began to ask for rain. Outside of Israel, there's just a different reason we don't ask for rain, because we consider all out of Israel follow the custom of Babylon. The main settlement of Jews outside of Israel used to be Babylon. And in Bavel, there's no need for rain until the next season, which is 5th or 6th of December. So we wait for that seasonal change, even though we're not in Babylon, but we go like the outside Israel of that time. So that's a technicality, but really the time for asking rain in Eretz Yisrael still remains the 7th of Cheshvan. So we understand that we're saying we're not asking for rain because there's something negative to the rain. We don't want people to be traveling when there's rain. We know it's very difficult to travel when there's rain. So we want to wait 15 days till the last Jew gets home, and then we'll ask for rain. But we understand that that's a reason, that's called a reason to negate a trouble that could be. That's not a positive reason. The Shach, the Sifsei Koyim on the Shulchan Aruch says that every time he gives a positive spin on it. He says, when the Jewish people would go up to the holiday, to the Beis Hamikdash, some of them could only get home. It took 15 days to get home. And for those people that were still traveling, it was and I'll paraphrase the words that he uses, the Shach, it's as if Adayin be'eretz Yisrael asukim b'inyanei haregel. It's as if they're still in the Holy Land of Israel, in the Beis Hamikdash, still busy with the atmosphere and the things of the holiday, so long as they haven't crossed the big river, the river Euphrates. So that's not just a negative, that we don't want it to rain so nobody should get disturbed in their travels. That's already also a positive, that the fact is that for the first 15 days after Sukkot, because there are still people traveling home, there's still an atmosphere, there's still a lingering remnant of Sukkot. I think the Rebbe once used in a Fabregan language that there's still leftovers from Simchas Torah still on the table. I mean, I still have mashka left over from Simchas Torah. It's still in proximity. It's still close. In other words, the 7th of Cheshvan is the day that really accentuates for us and highlights for us that that's the end of the going up to Yerushalayim for Sukkot. So really, it's a day of descent. What is the highest point? The highest point of a Jew spiritually is when he goes to Hashem's holy temple, the holiday. Mm-hmm. The moment you say that, when you describe the 15 days later, the 7th of Cheshvan as being the day when that ends, so that's the day of boom, descent. When everybody goes back home, under their under the as the description is always given, tachat gafno v'tachat einato, under his own personal grapevine, under his own personal fig tree. In other words, everybody's in their own place, either in Israel or outside of Israel. And even the last Jew who lives furthest has already got home. So that's really the end of the ascent, right? That's Zayin Cheshvan means, that's it. Game over, fun is over, the holiness is over. Now, jump into the real world, guys. Paragraph 2. So according to this, we have to understand, how does that fit with this portion that's the portion of Lech Lecha? Lech Lecha means go. Hashem tells Abraham, leave your land. But which direction is it going? The Lech Lecha that Hashem tells Abraham is to leave your land, your birthplace, your father's home, go to the special, I write special, but it doesn't say special. Go to the land which I will show you. Hashem's telling him to go from Chutz La'aretz, outside Israel, Charan, which is even a derogatory place outside Israel, and go to the Holy Land. So Lech Lecha is Hashem telling Avraham Avinu, go up in your level. Yet, what is the 7th of Cheshvan? It's when the Jew comes down, when the Beit HaMikdash into the world. So they seem to be at odds with each other. Now, you may say that right when, at the beginning of the parsha, where Avram comes to Canaan, immediately there's a descent. It says, Vayered Avram Mitzrayim, there was a famine, and Avram had to go down to Egypt. But we know that if you want to look at what is the real content of the parsha, you know there are many things in every parsha, but what is the overarching message of the parsha? You always look at the name, because the name is going to pick up on the main aspect of the portion and express it in that name. The name is always a handle. It's a more collective description of what's going on. What's the name of the parsha? Lech Lecha. Go for yourself. So Lech Lecha means go from outside Israel to Israel. It's an upward motion. And most of the portion is talking about Avraham, not in Egypt. He's in Egypt for a brief period, and it says he came up from Egypt with wealth. Most of the parsha describes Abraham in Israel, the Holy Land. So since everything in the Torah is a lesson, so obviously the lesson of this week's parsha is especially that the Alter Rebbe told us we have to live with the time, the portion, live with the time, not with the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or whatever it is. We have to live with the times means live with the parsha we're reading in Shul that week. That's what gives us our impetus for the week. That's the message for us. So what's our message this week? The message is about going up to Israel. But it coincides with the 7th of Cheshvan, which is the day when they left Israel. So how do you coincide? How do you reconcile these two mixed messages in the same week? Especially that the concept of the 7th of Cheshvan didn't just exist when the Beis HaMikdash was around, when people actually went to Israel. It relates to Jews in all times, because the law still today in Israel is that tonight, on the 7th of Cheshvan, they start to ask for rain in Israel. Which means, why is it? Because even after the temple was destroyed, Alter Rebbe brings in the Shulchan Aruch, the Jews would come up from all the areas surrounding Israel, surrounding Yerushalayim, as they do also today, says Alter Rebbe. People still go to Yerushalayim for the holidays. So even though the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed and the obligation to go to Yerushalayim fell off, the biblical obligation was only when you have a Beis HaMikdash, but still that became the overarching custom of Jewish people. So the same thing remained. We don't want to ask for rain right after Sukkot because people are traveling. 15 days later we ask. And this is, well, you say, well, it doesn't apply to us outside Israel. We wait till the 5th of December. No. The Sifsei Kohen and the Shach writes, when you write a document, doesn't matter where you are, if a Jew writes a document that this is going to take effect after the holiday of Sukkot, you know what it means? It means 15 days later. Even if he doesn't say how many days later, when you say after the end of Sukkot, that last point is 15 days later, the 7th of Cheshvan. So that's still, this concept is still something that exists still today. So the Rebbe is questioning, it seems to be mixed messaging, not just mixed, just to be opposite messaging. Lech Lecha is Hashem's message to Avram to go up. That would be a message for us to go from mundane to holy. The 7th of Cheshvan is the time, is the anniversary when the Jews went down. The last Jew arrived at his home outside of the holiness of Yerushalayim. Paragraph 3. In the actual concept, let's analyze the concept of what is really ascent and what is descent. See, we talk about, obviously, when we talk about going up, okay, when we talk physically, we know what is up and down. When we talk about ideas, going up and down is chashivut, has to do with importance, right? So let's try and get a handle on what up and down is. In the actual topic of talking about a Jew going out of the Beis Hamikdash into the world, there's actually, that's not downwards. That's not a descent. There's actually an aspect of Lech Lecha, of an upward mobility to that going away from the Beis Hamikdash into the mundane world. Because let's understand this, only when each person comes to his individualized place and a person gets to their home and they plow and they plant, that's the time when every Jew makes from his physical existence a dwelling place for Hashem in the lower worlds. That's where he implements the Torah mitzvahs. That's where he takes the lessons, the inspiration he got in the Beis Hamikdash, and now he does all of his physical deeds for the sake of heaven. With all of his life, he's expressing his connection to Hashem. You can't really do that. As holy as it is to be in Yerushalayim, the time of the holiday, you can't really express Hashem's presence in the world when you're in that cocoon of holiness. You don't have your land there. You're not going to be plowing there. You're not going to be doing business there. You're basking in the aura. And in general, you're not busy with physical things, with mundane things. You're not busy with, when we talk about making a dwelling place for Hashem in Tachtonim, in the lower world, when you're basking in the aura of the Beis Hamikdash, you're in a certain state of being, of holiness, a cocoon-like existence. That's not when you're really doing the action of bringing Hashem into the world. From the 7th of Cheshvan, when the last Jew is already home, and then starts the real serious work, the plowing, and in general, the engagement in the physicality of life, that's when we're making a place for Hashem in the lower worlds. So that's really an ascent. It's counterintuitive. Seems like it's, you went down from the holiness to the mundane. By a Jew, going to the mundane is the holiness. That's where you make the mark of bringing Hashem down. As we say sometimes about the neshama comes down below, and through working down here in the physical matters, it makes the world a dwelling place for Hashem. But you know what? How do you convince a neshama to come down? It doesn't want to come down. But you tell him, hey, you come down here, it's going to be like a gold mine. You can get stuff, you can't get up there. And you know what happens to the neshama? The neshama has mitzvahs down here. The neshama has connections with Hashem, and the neshama is able to have an ascent afterwards. It's win-win. It has an elevation that it couldn't have had before. So it's not a descent. The neshama coming down here is actually an ascent. However, so it seems we can just answer the question like that. It's a portion of Lech Lecha, where Avraham is told to go up from the mundane to the holy. Counterintuitively, leaving the Beis Hamikdash, which is happening this week. The last Jew gets to his place outside the Beis Hamikdash, is also holy. For the Jew, that's his holy mission, to bring Hashem to the mundane. Says the Rebbe, not so quick, my dear. It's not enough yet to explain to fully explain the connection between the portion of Lech Lecha, because what we're talking about in the simple reading of the pasuk is talking about Abraham going from outside Israel to Israel. And we're talking now, whatever way you look at it, that it's an upward motion in terms of level, but what is happening if you look at the facts? The guy's going from Israel to outside Israel. The portion is talking about Abraham going from outside Israel to Israel. So there's still a bit of a dissonance here that we want to address. I want to go deeper into it. So paragraph 4. So we'll understand this by first understanding the difference between the state of being that the Jews are when they go up to the holy Beis Hamikdash, when they're standing in the presence of what we call Lifnei Hashem, the presence of the Almighty. How is their state of being compared to when they are each in their individualistic place, in their own vineyard, in their own fig tree, in their own personal space, not before Hashem, in their own, mundane lives, which obviously we understand it's a descent in terms of sheer holiness. Standing in front of God in the temple is a place of holiness. Coming down to a place of mundane, individualized life is obviously going to be a descent. However, there's also a virtue, an advantage to that state of being over the state of being of the Beis Hamikdash. There's an advantage to being in your mundane space, which we want to unpack here. We could say there's a similarity here in the legal terminology that we talk about in halacha when you appoint an agent to do something for you. Here's a very fascinating, in a way, hair-splitting concept. When you want somebody to do something for you, okay, you delegate, you appoint somebody else to go and do a mission for you. There's two terminologies which are used in halacha, general terminology. One is you can have a sachir, which is a hired worker, a salaried worker. And one is you can talk about a shaliach, you can talk about sending an agent. In the word sachir, which is a hired worker, so generally speaking, he's working in the place, either in the place where the owners are or with items that belong to the owner. So again, this is the terminology in Hebrew where you would talk about a sachir is if you have a shop, in your shop, and you have somebody tending to the shop. He's manning the POS, the point of sale, the cash register. When you talk about sending, shaliach means to be sent. You talk about a shaliach, that's like an agent that you send somewhere else where you are not. Okay, so that's giving somebody, literally appointing somebody to have free, is it called free agency? To be in your place, I mean in your stead, but not actually in your place. You're going to expect them to go somewhere else. And it's very possible that what they're doing is not connected with the items that belong to the owner, but he's doing something on behalf of the person who sent it. So the word shliach denotes in it that there's a sending, a dispatching,
Person.
Not more personal yet. Where we're talking, it's more far. Sachir is somebody who's a salaried worker working in your proximity or directly in your purview. Shaliach will denote an agent who's going out there and doing something for you, perhaps not even in your possessions.
Help to reward.
Oh, we don't talk about reward. With the word shliach doesn't have anything about reward. That's the next point. The word sachir, in the word sachir is the word sachar, which means payment. It means you're taken a salaried worker. So that's a second difference. A shaliach just says he's an agent. The sachir, in the word sachir, is salaried worker. What's the difference between somebody who's salaried and somebody who's an agent? Somebody is a salaried worker. Who is he working for, really?
For himself or the salary?
For himself. He wants the salary. Yes, he's honest, so he'll do whatever the terms are to get that salary, he'll do it. If the terms are to work for you, he'll work for you. But really, in his mind, he's working for himself. If you've ever done a job where you're getting paid by the hour and it's hard work, you calculate kind of, well, an hour, 1 second, okay, calculate the money I just made, and then go into the next hour, figure, okay, I'm making more money. You're not thinking about him, about the guy who sent you. You're thinking about, and that's the way it is. When you talk about the concept of a shaliach, an agent who's being dispatched, so there, what in the word shaliach, it means he's thinking about the mission of the one who sent him, not about what's in it for him. Mm-hmm. It's a subtle difference in the two terminologies. So when you talk about a salaried worker, sachir, since essentially he's working for himself, he's not working for himself, but he's working on behalf of himself. He's working to get the payment that he's going to pay. So the question is, in halacha, can his actions really be as if the owner did them. Because he has an entity of his own identity there. He's working for himself in a way. Can we automatically say seamlessly, because I paid somebody to do something, that his act will now be as if I did it? When we talk, however, about a shliach, when somebody sends an agent, and the whole relationship is not the money. The relationship is that I have become an agent for you. Now we know that the law in halacha is that shlucho shel adam kemoto, the agent of a person who has dispatched that person, is as if the sender is doing the work that the agent is doing. He's a transparent continuation and extension of the one that sends him. So, and there's three ways that this can work. Now you're going to get a really beautiful hair-splitting thing. When we talk about shaliach, we say there's a rule in halacha that is shlucho. The Gemara says shlucho shel adam kemoto. The agent of a person is like him. I'll give you the most radical example, the basic example of the Talmud, but in today's day and age, it will sound extremely radical. The Gemara in Kiddushin, laws of betrothal, the Gemara says, Ha'ish mekadesh bo ubishlucho. A man can betroth a woman, either himself or through an agent. Now, I know how it works when you do it yourself. Our chuppahs are two-pronged. There's the first part called Kiddushin, the betrothal, the second part with which is called Nisuin, which is the consummation. It used to be done in two different times. We do it all under the same chuppah at the same time. So when we talk about Kiddushin, what is the Kiddushin? When the man takes the ring. Today we do it with a ring. It could have been just with money, but the man takes a ring, puts it on his fiancée at that time's finger, and he says, "Harei at mekodeshet li, you are betrothed to me, according to the laws of Moshe and Yisrael." It's witnessed with two kosher witnesses, and now she's betrothed to him. And the next stage will be that the marriage is consummated. So he can do it himself, of course, get dressed up in a tuxedo and come and do it. But there's another. The Mishnah says he can do it through an agent. He can send a shliach.
Like in old times.
He could have been. In other words, let's say, and the example that I give is, imagine you're standing under a chuppah and the chassan didn't show up. He didn't get a visa to come into the country. So he sent his friend with a ring. The friend comes running up with a ring. He says, "I'm not marrying you." No, you're not. Alei at mekodeshet, you're betrothed to him. To Yankel, who sent me. Oh. Now, it wouldn't happen. I mean, today I can't imagine it happening, but technically that's the halacha. So how does that work? How can Reuven give the ring and Yankel is married to this girl? So there's three ways it can work. Halacha, Rabbi Yosef Engel, there was a famous rabbi about 100 years ago who there were many genres of this way of halacha. Let's analyze what is happening when this agent's deed is going back to the sender. There's three ways it could happen. First of all, it could be that we look at the deed that was done and we say, this deed projects back to the one who sent the guy. So this guy's an independent guy, but the act that was done, halachically, is traced back to the one who instigated the act, which is the guy who sent the shaliach. Now the ring was placed on the girl's hand. We consider it as if that action was done by him. That's one way that the mechanism of a shliach can be working. It could be, though, these are svarot. These are nuanced. How do you say svaros? Reasonings in halacha. The other way it could be it's working is that that we say either one second. So we say that the deed is if the Mashliach did it, or we can say that actually the power of action, not just the deed that was done is now traced back, but actually when the person is placing the ring, we're looking at it as if this movement is happening through the guy who sent him. That's even deeper level of attribution. Or an even deeper level of attribution is that we look at the whole persona of the agent as being, you see Reuven, but it's really, halacha looks at it as if it's Yankel. Now, if Yankel's putting on the rings, obviously he's betrothed to Yankel. The fact that you see Reuven, halacha tells you, shlucho shel adam kemato, the entire persona of that shliach becomes like the one who sent him. So there's three different levels. Either way, it's the same halacha. The question is, how do we conceptually look at the attribution of the deed that was done that's attributed to the one who sent him? Do we say just the deed is attributed, the actual like hand that does it is attributed, or the whole persona of the person who's doing it becomes like a superimposition of the like the guy is superimposed? Seriously legal, subtle discussions, right? Whatever way you look at it, that's the concept of shliach. It automatically becomes attributed to the person who sent him. The word sachir denotes something different, which means I'm a salaried worker, and really I'm just doing it for myself. And it's not so clear that I'm doing it for him. Those are the subtleties of those two concepts. Paragraph 5. Now let's see, what does this have to do with us serving Hashem? Me'einze, we could say, is the distinction in spiritual sense between the way a Jew works when he's up in the Beis HaMikdash, in the place of Hashem, almost like in the worker who's in the domain, who's there in the shop of his employer, to the Jews the way they are back home, each one in his own figurative vineyard and fig tree. When they go up to the Beis HaMikdash, and we have what is called the Yeirah, called Zechurcha. All the males that come up see the face of the Master God. They literally see godliness. The same way they are seen by Hashem, they also see Hashem, so to speak. Jews came to einzappen, einzappen means to take in, to absorb the revelation of godliness that existed in the Beis HaMikdash. There were the famous 10 miracles that took place in the Beis HaMikdash, and that this was the place of the holy presence of Hashem, where the Kohanim served, the Leviim sang, the Israelites represented, group of Yisraelim represented the entire community as being there, the Ma'amadim, as being the owners, so to speak, of the carbon. However, all this, remember, we said the salaried worker who's in the place of his employer, he's thinking about himself. Think about this in the spiritual counterpart. The Jews that are in the Beis HaMikdash, what are they focused on? They're focused on their basking in the radiance of God. Similar to the way it would be described neshamas, souls that are basking in the ziv hashchina and the ray of Hashem's presence in the Garden of Eden. Leaving the Beis HaMikdash, coming back to your place in the 7th of Cheshvan, is not about seeing Hashem. We know full well when we leave the Beis HaMikdash, the level of visibility of godliness, the level of open spirituality is going to be diminished. We know that we're going to go to a place where we're not going to feel God in that way. What's the reason we go? Why does a Jew leave the Beis HaMikdash? He just stay in the Beis HaMikdash. Because the purpose is to fulfill what Hashem wants. Hashem has a shlichus. Hashem creates us as his agents to achieve something not in his shop, to achieve something as agents to change the world, the lower world, to do Torah mitzvahs, to make this lower world a dwelling place for him. And the beauty is that when he sends us out, that's when we truly become like the agent, like the shliach, who becomes, we said, what happens with the shliach? In a way, because he's not focused on himself about what's in it for me. He's focused, what is the mission? He becomes transparently connected and attributed to the one who sends him. So the connection to Hashem is much more deeper. It's not focused on the basking radiance. It's focused on God. What do you want from me? You want me to plow? You want me to engage in work? You want me to change the world? I'm out there. I know I'm not going to feel you so much, but I'm your agent, transparent. What I do is like you're doing it. Paragraph 7. According to this, we can understand when we talk about the 7th of Cheshvan, coming back from Eretz Yisrael, coming back from the Holy Land, that's the real Lech Lecha, that's the real going. Real going is when you come to a new level totally, which is not at all in the same realm of the previous level. You know, they say sometimes they ask, "No, was machst du? How you doing?" "Oh, nothing new." What do you mean nothing new? The yeah, the beard's growing, the hair's growing. That's not called growth. That's what is called residual, not residual. Let's talk about, for example, when there's it's called the rate of inflation, cost of living index. When somebody wants a raise, if you just give him a raise according to the cost of living, is it a raise? Not a raise. Halicha. So the Rebbe always says when you talk about when you talk about going, if you're just walking at a if you're just going at a steady pace with no real, that's not really called going. In other words, there's a word I'm looking for, but not residual growth, but growth that's just almost predictable, natural growth. That's not going. Halicha. When we talk about Lech Lecha, Abraham goes. That's a total transformative going. He leaves his father's house. He leaves his birthplace and he goes to Eretz Yisrael. When we want to talk about us going, it's got to be radical, more radical than just slow paced. So since when we went up to Yerushalayim, it was about us, right? When we go out of Yerushalayim, it's no longer about us. Now we're the agents of Hashem doing what Hashem wants. So that's a transformative kind of going. That's radically different. It's two radically different kinds of behaviors. One is enjoying my relationship in Hashem's presence. It's about me. I'm a created being. When I'm an agent of Hashem and I go and do what He wants, without regard to if I'm enjoying it or not, but I'm doing what He wants, now I connect to the infinite Him. That's truly Lech Lech. We want to talk about real movement. That's the real movement. Yes. So yeah, it's not going from outside Israel to Israel. But what does it mean to go to Israel? In Avram's case, going to Israel meant going to Hashem. Here, what does it mean? How do we get closer to Hashem? When we leave His presence, when we go to the lower world to be His agents, to be His shluchim, to create a dwelling place for Him in the world. Paragraph 7. According to all this, we'll also understand the connection of the name of the Seder, which is Lech Lecha, go, but the pasuk, as we said, it's talking about Avram going from outside Israel to Israel, because Avram Avinu, when he was still outside Israel in Chutz La'aretz, he spread the concept of godliness in the world, and he brought people to serve God. It says that when he had to leave outside Israel to go to Canaan, he took with HaNefesh Asher Asu B'Charan, the people, the souls that he had created, made in Haran. How did he make people? So Chazal explained he had converted people, that he started to tell people the secret of the story about monotheism, that you shouldn't serve any other God, any other deity, except the one God. And he started to promote that. He started to preach that. And people started to gather around him. And he started to proclaim it to the entire world that there is a one God and you should serve God. He did that already before he came to Israel. So what happened when he came to Israel? When he was doing it before he came to Israel, he was doing it on his own initiative. He had come to a recognition of God. He, through contemplation, he understood the truth. He understood the true tzedek, the true justice of the way things work, but he came to it on his own, which means that his spreading of Hashem's presence was something that was based in his conviction. The moment that he understood that, he spread that with everybody. He spread his conviction with everybody else. What happens in this parsha when Hashem tells him, Lech Lecha? Hashem doesn't tell him, continue what you're doing. Hashem says, leave. Leave. He's doing a good job. What do you mean, leave? Paragraph 8. Hashem tells him, the instruction of Hashem is, Lech Lecha, leave, go. And from then, Avraham Avinu starts to work as an agent of Hashem. He's now working at the instruction and behest of Hashem. Till now, he was working at his own conviction. He didn't have an instruction. He was doing great work. Hashem was appreciative of it, obviously. Now, with what happens in this week's parsha is a huge change. Hashem says, Lech Lecha, go to the land of Canaan and preach, change the world. But now he's doing it as an agent of Hashem, as a shliach of Hashem, based on the commandment of Hashem. And that's why when he comes to the land of Israel, we see that the Torah describes his activity as Vayikra b'shem Hashem. He calls out in the name of God. Now we know he did that before as well. What we're saying is that when he comes to Israel, it becomes totally radicalized, becomes in a totally transformative way. Because even though outside Israel, Avraham spread the knowledge, spread the great news about God in the world, but the people in the world didn't really recognize him. It wasn't something that was ragil, it wasn't something that was familiarized on earth. It was still a new novelty. When he came to Israel and he established, again, he came with the powers of God because Hashem told him to do it. Now he establishes the presence of Hashem here on earth, where people become familiar and where this becomes the talk that people talk about, becomes the status quo already of certain areas. In other words, when Avraham Avinu was still outside Israel, before he had the instruction of God to go to Israel, it had to do with his level of conviction and understanding. And therefore, when you do it on your own, there's Hashem and there's the world. And of course, Hashem is greater than the world, so the world is batel, is not really a true existence compared to Hashem, but it's still, the world is there. Once you come in Hashem's name, and Hashem tells him to go to Canaan and to spread the knowledge of God, now what happens is that Abraham's belief goes up to a higher level, and it says that he called out in the name of Hashem, the God of the world, not the God of the world, the God who is the world. In other words, his perception went up an incredible notch where the world and Hashem are no longer separate for him. In other words, Hashem's unity is so powerful that the world isn't even in existence. There's two levels. There's the general level we could talk about where a person recognizes there's a world, but he recognizes God is bigger and he's the creator. So the world is not really a challenge to God. The higher level is where you see that God is so pervasive, God is so everything, that when you look at the world, you never see the world, you see God. The God of the world is not that God is the world, not that the world is God, but there's no separation between God and the world. It's just the immanence of God that you see. That you can't come to on your own. That is the great gift that Hashem gave Avraham. And that's why it's called a Lech Lecha. As Avraham is told, go. Till now, you're doing it on your own conviction, doing a great job. You're outside, you're in Chutz La'aretz, but you're limited in the way you can see the world and God. There's still a world on some level. When Hashem gives him the instruction, he makes him an agent of his. Now Avraham is catapulted to a new level where he sees that Hashem is just everything. The world is not even a real existence. Paragraph 9. This is also what the pasuk at length says. Lech lecha, leave. Go for yourself. From your land, from your land, from your birthplace. We base from your father's house. To the land which I will show you. Why is there such length? He doesn't just say go. He says go from your land, from your father's house. Why is there such an emphasis here? Because the emphasis is not just Abraham should go to Israel. It's not just the destination he should go to. But mainly what we're telling him here is where he has to leave. We're identifying to Abraham, you have to leave your own confines, your own contours, your own existence. Leave your land, leave your father's place, leave your birthland. And Chassidus tells us these all refer to different levels of the person's awareness. Artzecha is from the base word of ratzon, which is leave your desires, put them on the side. Moladetecha, it means your birthplace, but it can also mean the things you are, the natural attributes that you have, your habits. Leave your habits. The base avicha, your father's house. In Kabbalah, Av and Aim, the father is Chachma, is wisdom. Leave even your own intellect, even though everything about Avraham, his intellect was holy. But Hashem's telling him, no, it's your intellect though, and it's your habits, and it's your desires, even though they're holy, but still your ego, not a negative ego, but your identity is still there. Hashem's saying, I want you to leave your own identity, your own persona, your own existence, and come up to the land which I will show you. I want you to come to me totally, so to speak, absorbed in me in a certain sense. So that ascent that Avram gets uplifted in that way is indescribably different, much higher than his previous level. He became, in one word, if we spoke the difference between a salaried worker and an agent, he became a shliach of Hashem, became an agent of Hashem, transparently representative of Hashem. Now everything he does is attributed to Hashem because he and Hashem are like one. So this becomes, so through this, what this represented is not just for Avram, but it represented the connection of the creator and the created being. And that was ultimately the preparation for what would happen at the giving of the Torah at Sinai, where Hashem says, I'm going to give this concept where the Jewish people, that they can connect heaven and earth, that I'm asking them and instructing them and giving the opportunity to do physical things for me, and then they represent me, they become my shluchim, they become my agents, and they create the fusion between heaven and earth. So paragraph 10, this is also the lesson that we take out from the day of the 7th of Cheshvan, which, as we said, always comes out in this portion of Lech Lecha. Because even in the time of exile, this is also, we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. But let's face it, it takes us time to decompress, to go out of the full engagement in the festivals and to go around into the daily grind, the daily activities. So when we do, this symbolizes for us, the 7th of Cheshvan symbolizes, guys, holidays are over. Yom Tov is over. I mean, we're a party here and there, but none of that major partying, the sukkahs, the davening, the learning, and the singing, and the dancing, and the lachaims, and the feasts, and all that, guys, and the holiness. That's over. Now, 9 to 5, or whatever hours you work, do what you got to do. Now you're in the mundane work. On what behalf? We have to know. We shouldn't. So a person could feel, God forbid, a little down. It could be a downer. Because I love being in that cocoon of holiness of the Yom Tovim, of the holidays. You have to understand, no, we're getting upgraded. You have to do it with a lot of joy, because you have to know that in this work that we're doing, just like Avraham Avinu, that Hashem says, now you're my agent. When we're being sent out of the Beis HaMikdash in proximity of Hashem, we're not going to be any more like salaried workers just hanging around the boss and just doing some stuff for him. We're actually being given a task. We're tasked to be his agents. And as an agent, we have the power to be like him. What we do is attributed to him. He's operating through us. We become like him. To do what? To do his intention. What's his plan? To make this lower world a place of dwelling for him. And right now we're working. We don't see the results of our work. All of this will be revealed. When Mashiach comes, we'll see the results of everything we've been doing. All the mitzvahs we've been doing, all the engagement and impact that we have in this world. We'll see openly Hashem's presence in all those physical things. So this is an epic week. It's Lech Lecha, it's going. Initially, it looks like we got the wrong direction. Here's going to Israel, and we're talking about going from Israel, but a Jew has to look deeper. He has to look at not where GPS tells you you're going. You have to look, where does Hashem want you to go? And anything you're doing for Hashem is always making you higher. By leaving Israel, in the time of Avraham, it was still the first part of the process. Hashem had to catapult him from outside Israel and engage him as a shaliach, and that had to be to go to Israel. But after that, when we have the holiness in the Beis HaMikdash, leaving that cocoon-like state and going out and being the agents of Hashem, that's where the real action starts. So guys, the simcha, with a lot of joy, we're going to do it.